Welcome back. Please get comfortable, take a deep breath, and allow yourself to relax. Tonight, I'll be reading Bluebeard. There was once a man who had fine houses, both in town and country, a great deal of silver and gold plate, embroidered furniture, and gilded coaches. But this man was unlucky enough to have a blue beard, which made him so frightfully ugly that all the women and girls ran away from him. One of his neighbors, a lady of quality, had 2 daughters who were perfect beauties. He asked her for one of them in marriage, leaving to her choice which of the 2 she would bestow on him. Neither of them would have him. Another reason, besides the beard, for their disgust and aversion was his having been married to several wives, and nobody knew what had become of them. To win their affection, Bluebeard took them, with their mother, 3 or 4 ladies of their acquaintance, and some young people of the neighborhood, to one of his country houses, where they all stayed for a week. There was nothing but parties, hunting, fishing, dancing, mirth, and feasting. Nobody went to bed, for they spent the night playing games and joking with one another. In short, everything went so well that the younger daughter began to think the master of the house was an agreeable gentleman after all. As soon as they returned home, the marriage took place, and about a month afterward, Bluebeard told his wife he was obliged to take a journey for 6 weeks at least, about affairs of very great consequences. He begged her to amuse herself in his absence, and suggested that she invite some of her friends to the country, if she pleased, and to enjoy herself wherever she might be. "Here," said he, "are the keys to the large storerooms, wherein I have my best furniture. These are for my silver and gold plate, which is not in use every day. These open my strong boxes, which hold my money, both gold and silver. These, my caskets of jewels. And this is the master key to all my apartments. But this little one is the key to the closet, at the end of the gallery on the ground floor. Open any of them you wish. You may go into every one, except that little closet, which I forbid you." She promised to observe exactly what he had ordered. Then, having embraced her, he got into his coach and started on his journey. Her neighbors and good friends did not wait to be sent for, so great was their impatience to see the rich furnishings of her house. Not daring to do so while her husband was at home, they ran through the rooms and looked into the closets and wardrobes, all fine and rich. They praised and envied the happiness of their friend, who hardly greeted them, such was her eagerness to open the closet on the ground floor. She was so driven by her curiosity that she went down a little back staircase with such excessive haste that twice or thrice she nearly broke her neck. When she reached the closet door, she stopped for some time, thinking of her husband's orders, but the temptation was strong and she could not overcome it. She took the little key and opened the door, trembling, but could not at first see anything plainly, because the shutters were closed. After some moments she perceived a blood-stained floor on which lay the bodies of several dead women. These were the wives Bluebeard had married and murdered, one after another. She thought she would die of fear, and the key, which she had pulled out of the lock, fell from her hand. When she had somewhat regained her courage, she picked up the key, locked the door, and went upstairs into her room to recover herself. But she could not, so frightened was she. Having observed that the key of the closet was stained with blood, she tried 2 or 3 times to wipe it off. In vain did she wash it, and even rub it with soap and sand. But the blood still remained, for the key was magical, and she could never make it quite clean. When the blood was gone from one side, it appeared again on the other. Bluebeard returned from his journey that same evening, saying he had received letters on the way, informing him the business matter had ended to his advantage. Next morning he asked her for the keys, which she gave him, but with such a trembling hand he easily guessed what happened. "What?" said he. "How come there's blood upon the key?" "I do not know," cried the poor woman, paler than death. "You do not know," replied Bluebeard. "I know very well. You were resolved to go into the closet, were you not?" Very well, madame. You shall go in and take your place among the ladies you saw there. Hearing this, she threw herself at her husband's feet. She would have melted a rock, so beautiful and sorrowful was she. But Bluebeard had a heart harder than any rock. You must die, madam, said he, and very soon. Since I must die, answered she, looking upon him with her eyes filled with tears, give me some little time to say my prayers. I give you, replied Bluebeard, half a quarter of an hour, but not one moment more. When she was alone, she called out to her sister, who was still visiting with her, and said, Sister Anne, go up, I beg you, to the top of the tower, and look if our brothers are coming. They promised me they would come today. If you see them, give them a sign to make haste. Her sister Anne went up to the top of the tower, and the poor afflicted wife called, Anne, Sister Anne, do you see anyone coming? And Sister Anne said, I see nothing but the sun which makes a dust, and the grass which looks green. Meanwhile, Bluebeard, holding a great sword in his hand, shouted to his wife, Come down instantly, or I shall come up to you. One moment longer, if you please, said his wife, and then she cried out very softly, Anne, Sister Anne, do you see anyone coming? And Sister Anne answered, I see nothing but the sun, which makes a dust, and the grass, which is green. Come down quickly, cried Bluebeard, or I will come up to you. I'm coming, answered his wife, and then she called, Anne, Sister Anne, do you not see anyone coming? I see, replied Sister Anne, a great dust which comes on this side here. Are they our brothers? Alas, no, my dear sister, I see a flock of sheep. Will you not come down? Cried Bluebeard. Just one moment longer, said his wife. And then she cried out, Anne, Sister Anne, do you see nobody coming? I see, said she, 2 horsemen, but they are still a great distance away. Heaven be praised, replied the poor wife joyfully. They are our brothers. I will make a sign, as well as I can, for them to make haste. Then Bluebeard bawled out so loud that he made the whole house tremble. The distressed wife came down and threw herself at his feet, all in tears, with her hair about her shoulders. This means nothing to me, said Bluebeard. You must die. Then taking hold of her hair with one hand, and lifting up the sword with the other, he was about to take off her head. The poor lady, looking at him with pleading eyes, begged for one moment more to collect herself. No, no, said he, commend yourself to God, and was just ready to strike. At this very instant there was such a loud knocking at the gate that Bluebeard stopped short. 2 horsemen entered, drawing their swords. Bluebeard knew them to be his wife's brothers, and he immediately dashed off to save himself. But the 2 brothers pursued so closely that they overtook him before he reached the steps, where they ran their swords through him and left him dead. The poor wife was almost as dead as her husband, and had not strength enough to rise and welcome her brothers. Bluebeard's wife became mistress of all his estate. She made use of one part of it to marry her sister Anne to a young gentleman who had loved her a long while, another part to buy captain's commissions for her brothers, and the rest to marry herself to a very worthy gentleman, who soon made her forget the ill time she had passed in the house of Bluebeard.